Welcome back, scientists! Today, you are going to use a model to describe how animals receive, how they process, and then how they respond to information. Let's do this, scientists! Welcome back, scientists! I am Mr. Steier, and this is Mr. Steier's classroom. Today, we are going to use models to describe how animals receive, process, and respond to information. You know that we've been talking a lot about plant structures, then we were talking about animal structures, then we were talking about animal senses, how animals receive those senses, and then what they do once they have that information from those senses we've talked about. Well, now we're putting all of that together and we're trying to figure out what happens when that information gets to them. Their sense receptors take that in, then how does that change their behavior? How does that change the things that they do? And today you are going to have to do some very scientific thinking and figure out a way to use that information in order to make a model. So remember all of those things we've talked about. We've talked about the hearing receptors. We've talked about the vibration in the feet of the elephants. We have talked about how the snow leopard can sense its environment around it, how it sees, how it reacts, how the brain is involved in interpreting and making decisions for all of that information. How there's chemicals in the air that animals can smell. There is the receptors in touch. So we have all of these things that are happening in all of these different animals, and we've spent a lot of time talking about elephants and talking about snow leopards. Well, today we are going to be talking about a mouse and a snake. So start to think about the things that you know about mice and snakes. So if we look at this image here and we can see this mouse right in front of us, what are things that we notice about this particular mouse? That's a good idea. I like that response too. Yeah, one of the things I notice is the mouse is in the shade. I mean, clearly I can look at this mouse and I can see that it has quite large eyes. It also has quite large ears. It has whiskers. Its paws are down in the sand, and this definitely looks like sand to me. It's kind of hiding. It's blending in with its surroundings. These are all things that I notice right away. And the beach mouse spends little time outside its burrow during daylight hours. All right, that's interesting information. So it is a mostly nocturnal animal. It is not a diurnal animal. Each of its features is going to help that mouse gather information about its environment. Now, let's switch it. And here we have a snake. What are the things that we notice about the snake? Well, right away, I notice its flat head. I notice its eyes. I just know that a snake has a tongue that it can smell with. I can see that it is coiled up. It looks like it's ready to move. The eastern diamondback rattlesnake preys on rats, mice, squirrels, and birds. Well, that's interesting information. I wonder how this information connects with our mouse. What other things do you notice that are different between the snake and the mouse? Oh yeah, that mouse is definitely smaller. The snake is larger. The eyes are much smaller on the snake than on the mouse. Yeah, we can tell that the mouse has fur and this snake has scales. That's another great point. So as we go through this lesson, you're going to have to do some research to learn some things about the sense receptors of a mouse and of a snake. So let's jump into our information and see what else we can learn here about these two particular animals. A beach mouse uses its senses to survive in the grassy sand dunes of Florida. It digs burrows into the sand. It uses the burrows to keep safe, raises young, and stores seeds for food. The mice look for food mainly at night. The eastern diamondback rattlesnake preys on beach mice and other small animals. Imagine that this mouse has just come out of its burrow. It's late at night and it's very dark. Suddenly, an eastern diamondback rattlesnake notices the mouse. What senses are going to go off inside of our mouse if it can sense the rattlesnake is near? Okay, so we have some background information. We know things from the things that we know. And now let's see what work we have to do to make this model. So here's the big thing that you're doing today in your assignment. You need to design a model that shows how the mouse and the snake might receive information through several of their senses as they search for food. Include how the mouse and the snake might process and respond to the information. If it's dark out at night, how might that change how each of these two animals respond to the situation? We know that the mouse only comes out at night to hunt for food. Is that true about the snake as well? So you're going to need to take some of your ideas and things that you know about mice and snakes, and you're going to have to turn that into a model or an image or a picture, or you'll see the animation that I created for my model so that I can explain what's happening. But in order to do those things, you have to know some information, and that might mean that you need to do a little bit of research. Again, you can look on Pebble Go. You can look on Pebble Go Next, and you might be able to find the information that you need on those sites to help you have a deeper understanding of the model you're creating. So you're doing some research, you're finding out some stuff about these different creatures, and then you have to ask yourself the next set of questions. The next set of questions are things like, where are the mouse's sense receptors? And where are all of the snake's sense receptors? Where is that information being processed in either the mouse or the snake? After you start to build your model, then you need to discuss your model. So if you're in the classroom, you're probably talking to a classmate. If you're working on this independently, you will need to find someone that you trust to talk to and talk about how the mouse and the snake might receive, process, and react to the information. How might their reactions be the same, and how might it be different? After you've talked with and shared your model with somebody else, then you might need to revise your model. So you might have to do some more research to find out how the mouse and the snake gather information from their environment. Then revise your model to show what information the mouse and the snake receives in the process. And again, this is what scientists do. They make an observation, they learn more from fellow scientists, they communicate together as scientists, they revise their ideas, and they continue their experiments. They continue their process. All right, and then the last step is after you have created your model, you're going to share your model. And again, in your particular situation, this might look very different, but you will need to share your model. It might be you're sharing with the same person who helped you revise, and it might be that you're sharing with somebody totally new and different. It might be that you're just sharing with your teacher, but you need to be prepared to discuss how the models you made are the same and different. especially when you're talking with a classmate. Maybe their models are very different than what you created. And again, some of you might actually build a diorama and then take a picture of it and upload it. Some of you might draw a picture. Some of you might create an animation like I did. The possibilities are endless as to how you design your model, but your model will have to describe how animals receive, process, and respond to information. Your next questions and next steps as you continue to move forward in this assignment is you are also going to have to answer some inferential questions. You're going to have to answer some questions on, when you're doing your research, what is a similarity in the way all animals process information from their environments? We've talked about all kinds of animals up to this point, and I know you have so much more knowledge of other animals. So how is it similar in ways that they are processing the information? How does the mouse and the snake process their information similarly? How do they process their information differently? What can you conclude about how different animals receive, process, and respond to information in different ways? And then when we start working toward our 5th grade work, one of the things that we would ask ourselves is how we could extend our model. So this model has 2 things in it. It has a mouse and it has a snake. But what would happen if an owl was added to this model? Would an owl in this model change the reactions, the behaviors, and the senses of the snake? Would it change the behaviors, the actions, and the senses of the mouse? Why or why not? And think about this one. How has each of these animals' senses developed to benefit that specific animal? How have the senses of a mouse helped to benefit the mouse or the snake? Or if we added an owl, how would it help an owl? And then you can see that we're starting to develop a food chain, which is something we're going to talk a lot more about in 5th grade. All right, scientists. So just to recap, your job today is you're going to make a model. Your model is you are going to design a model that shows how this mouse and this snake might receive information through several of their senses as they search for food. So you're putting all of your knowledge and your experience together that you have learned about senses previously. You're focusing on the senses of the mouse and of the snake. And when you are done building your model, you can say that you can use a model to describe how animals receive, process, and respond to information. I am Mr. Steier, and this is Mr. Steier's Classroom. Thank you for being with me here today, scientists, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!